Hey guys, today is Thursday, February 6th, just making sure we are on the correct video. You do need your vocab sheet today. We are going to be filling in a lot of things on your vocab sheet, so make sure you have that. If you were absent on Monday when I passed this out or you can't find it, there may be a few extras, but we're going to put some important things on this today, so make sure you have that. We are going to be back in our workbook today, and you should have turned in your homework to the back tray, or you can just give it to the sub, whichever one. But I need that. Make sure you turn it in. And if you didn't finish it / get it turned in, that needs to be a priority. And you're probably going to want your laptop for your calculator. All right, today is lesson 4 and it's arithmetic sequences. I know a lot of times people want to say arithmetic, but we pronounce this arithmetic sequences. So we're going to be identifying and describing arithmetic sequences. Okay, so starting on your vocab sheet, arithmetic sequences are patterns where you add or subtract to get to the next number. The number you add or subtract is called the common difference, and we use the letter D to represent common difference. So you'll be seeing a lot today when we find that common difference, we're going to write D equals. Okay, so we're in your workbook on page 120. Workbook page 120, and you are going to want to go ahead and write down this list. Okay, 26, 39, 52, 65, and 78. Okay, so go ahead and get that sequence written down. Just, you can honestly write it under try it one because we're not going to do try it one. Just get this list written down. Okay, so when you see a sequence of numbers like this, you need to determine, does it have a common difference? That needs to be your first step before you move on and continue doing things with this sequence. So what that means is we want to see, remember you just wrote on your vocab sheet, that means we're adding or subtracting the same number every time. So you need to ask yourself, how do I get from 26 to 39? Okay, we add 13. Now, you have to make sure you consistently add 13 throughout this entire sequence because sometimes they'll try to get you on the last number. Okay, so you have to go through and make sure we're adding by 13 the entire time. And for this sequence, we are. Every time we go from one number to the next, we're adding 13. So this question says, is this list an arithmetic sequence? So you would write, yes, arithmetic. And then you would write D equals 13 because that's you telling me your common difference is 13. Okay, so you look to see what your common difference is, or if you look to see what you're adding or subtracting, and if it's the same thing every time. Now, let's say we would have done this sequence and we would have said, okay, 13, 13, 13, but let's say your last number was 77 instead of 78, and we only added 12 that last time. Then you would write not arithmetic, and then there's not a common difference. Okay, so you only have D equals when we're adding the same thing every time or subtracting. Okay. All right, back on your definition sheet. Okay, I told you guys there's lots of vocab today, so make sure you're getting all of this filled in. It's going to be a great resource for you. So arithmetic sequences are linear functions. So since we're consistently adding the same thing, we talked about this at the beginning of one of our previous lessons, we're increasing that value by the same thing each time. Okay, so it's going to create a line when you graph it. Their position is the domain and the sequence is the range. Okay, I do want you to write this on your vocab sheet, like right underneath it. Domain, we use the letter X, and range is the letter Y. So you can kind of create a table with your X and Y values, and that's also your domain and range. The common difference D is the same thing as slope M. So let's remember from previous topic, we use the letter M to identify our slope, and we use the letter D for common difference. They're always going to be the same number. So if you find your common difference, like in this previous problem was 13, if we were to write an equation, our slope would also be 13. All right. We're going to do an example with that. So 1B says, how are sequences related to functions? Again, this is not in your workbook, and we're still using that same sequence from earlier. So I'm going to rewrite it up here so we can look at it on the screen, but you, of course, have it in your notebook where you wrote it down earlier. Actually, this is a different sequence. Is it? Nope, same thing. I just think I miswrote a number earlier. Maybe not. Okay, same sequence. So we already determined earlier that we're adding 13 every time, okay? And you already told me your common difference was 13. This is things that we've already determined. So here's what I want you to realize about position and sequence. So all of these numbers right here, 26, 39, this is our sequence, okay? I need to know their position. And what that means is, what position is number 26? That is your first position. That's your first number of the sequence, which makes this 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, we have 5 numbers. Okay, so I like to write it like this. Okay, I like to make it a table. So I like to write X, Y, and then go through. We're going to make 5 spots for it, and then write down our original sequence. You guys are used to seeing tables like this, so I think it's going to help you write the equation, okay? So I just want to remind you, you might want to write it right here. X is representing the position, which is your domain. Y is representing your sequence, which is representing your range, okay? You guys should be familiar with the words domain and range, okay? Now, let's remember what you just wrote on your vocab sheet. Slope and common difference are always the same. So right up here, I have written D equals 13. I'm also going to write M equals 13. Remember, the letter M stands for slope. So this is taking us back to last topic, because guess what? We're going to write this in slope-intercept form. Let's remind ourselves slope-intercept form is Y equals MX plus B. Well, right now, all I have is my slope. Okay, so I'm going to write Y equals 13x plus B. Now, do you guys remember from last topic, you can take an ordered pair from your table and plug that in for X and Y and solve for your Y-intercept, okay? Or you can work backwards. Remember, your Y-intercept is always your starting value. So if we've been adding 13 every time, and I need my Y-intercept, which is when X is 0, how would I get back up here for this Y value? Subtract 13. 26 minus 13 is 13. If that's too confusing for you to work backwards, I understand, okay? And with some tables and numbers, it can be a little bit more difficult, all right? So if that's too hard, remember, pull one of your ordered pairs off of your table. So I'm just going to take my ordered pair 1, 26. So I plug 26 in for Y, 13 times 1 plus B. We did this last topic quite a few times, okay? Plug in an X and Y with your slope and solve for B. Well, 13 times 1 is 13. And then we subtract 13 from both sides. 26 minus 13 is 13. So 13 equals B, which is the same thing as right up here where we worked backwards. Remember, your Y-intercept, which is B, is always going to be when your X is 0. So now I can write this as an equation. So Y equals 13X plus 13. They just so happen to be the same number. Or I can write it as a function, because remember, this whole topic is about functions. F of X equals 13X plus 13. Okay. I know that was a lot. So just to recap, common difference and slope are always going to be the same number. Your x values are your domain and your y values are your range. You may also see those referred to as position or sequence. Okay, we wanted to write this as an equation and we use y equals mx plus b because that's going to give us a line. These are linear functions. You have your slope, and to find your b, your y-intercept, you could either work backwards from the table to where x is 0, what is your y value, or plug in an ordered pair to solve for b. Again, reminding you guys, all of these notes are on the Schoology page if you missed something. Okay, still using that same sequence, I'm going to write it one more time for you guys. I know you're still referring back to it each time on your own workbook page. This question says, how do you represent sequences using subscript notation? So I want to show you what subscript notation is. All it is since this is an arithmetic sequence, we're going to use the letter A. So A1 equals 26 because that's my first term of the arithmetic sequence. Then I'm sure you can guess. A2 equals 39. A3 equals 52. A4 equals 65. And A5 equals 78. It's important that you know that this is subscript notation. Again, the A is coming because it's an arithmetic sequence, and then obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is just that number it is in the sequence. All right, we're going to go back to our definition sheet. I have to fill all of this in with you guys, okay? So we're going to learn about the recursive formula. So for the recursive formula, you use AN equals AN minus 1 plus D. AN represents the term you are looking for. AN minus 1 represents the previous term, and D represents common difference. So I'm going to give you guys a second to get all of this copied down because I know it can be quite a bit. Okay, if I'm going to go ahead and move on, but if you did not get this, get it from a neighbor or on the notes on the Schoology page. Okay, so it says, what is a recursive formula for the height above ground of the nth step of the pyramid shown? So when it says nth, that nth, it's saying it could give you any number possible, okay? So looking at this picture, what do we know? Okay, we know the first term, A1 equals 26. That tells us right here. Each step is 26 centimeters tall. So that first step is going to be 26. Okay. Now, we're going to use the recursive formula. So you just wrote down what the recursive formula was, but I'm going to write it right here again. AN, see, this is where that N comes from up here in the problem. AN equals AN minus 1 plus D. Okay. Now, if each step is 26 centimeters tall, I want you to think, what do you think our common difference is going to be? 26. We're constantly increasing by 26 centimeters for each step. So I'm going to go ahead and write D equals 26. All right. So if we plug this in, there's a couple ways you could do this. You could write your recursive formula as AN equals AN minus 1 When you write recursive formula, all you're doing is instead of writing plus D, you write plus 26, whatever your common difference was. That's really all you do for the recursive formula. Now, you can do it this way to find the second term. A2 equals A2 minus 1. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not going to do that because it's going to confuse you guys. We're just going to do like this. All you need to know for recursive formula is that you just plug in 26 in place of your common difference. So if you know your first term was 26, to get to the next term, we're going to add 26 more. 26 plus 26 is 52. Then how do we get to the next one? Plus 26 more, so 78. So we know it's adding 26 every time, okay? It's adding 26 each time. If this told you it wanted to know what the 48th step was going to be, we don't have time to add 26 48 times, especially on your EOC. It's a time test. You don't have time to keep adding 26, adding 26. This is when the recursive formula comes in handy because I would write A 48, which is the 48, that's the term I'm looking for. Then you write A 48 minus 1 plus 26. Okay. That's how you would plug it in. But this is confusing for a lot of people, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. You are also giving the recursive formula equation on a reference sheet for your EOC. So I don't want you guys to stress about that too much. It's really just all about patterns. Okay, now we're going to talk about the explicit formula. We're going to see the explicit formula a lot more than recursive, okay? So explicit form is a little bit different, okay? This is AN equals A1. Remember, A1 is representing your first term. And then you're going to write plus N minus 1 D. Now, let's remind ourselves right here, when two things are side by side, what operation is taking place? Multiplication. So this is like you're going to distribute. It's just backwards. That D is on the back side of it, okay? So A1 or N represents the term you were looking for. A1 represents the first term, and D represents the common difference. So again, going to give you guys some time to get that filled in on your vocab sheet. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Okay, so example 3, this is not in your workbook. So if you just want to copy down this table right here really quick, the one right here, number of days rented, rental costs, instead of writing all of that, you can just write X and Y. So your X values are 1, 2, 3, and 4, and your Y values 26, 38, 50, and 62. So we want to identify a couple of things. We're talking, the question says the cost of renting a bicycle is given in the table. How can you represent the rental cost using the explicit form? So we need to find a couple of things. The first thing we need to identify is A1. What is our first term of this sequence? And that is 26. The second thing we need is our common difference. So we need to see how are we increasing each time. 26 to 38 is 12. 38 to 50 is plus 12, and 50 to 62 is plus 12. So our common difference in this one is 12. Okay, so we are going to write explicit form first. It's very important you label these because we're going to be writing it in 3 different forms. Okay. Explicit form, remember, it is AN equals A1. A1 is 26. A1 is our first term. Plus parentheses N minus 1, D. And remember, D is our common difference, 12. That's all you have to do when it says explicit. You just have to plug in A1 and D. For recursive, you just plug in D. Okay? Now we're going to write this in slope-intercept form, which takes us back to last topic. Now, I'm sure if you look at this, you have an idea of how you might write this in slope-intercept form. We need to distribute. Okay, so I'm going to write y equals. All right, I have 26 plus I'm distributing this 12 to both of these. 12n minus 12. Okay, when you get right here, we have like terms to combine in 26 and 12. Okay, so now I'm going to write y equals my number. Remember, my slope and common difference are always the same, so that makes sense. 12 and 12. So 12, and instead of this n, I want to change it to x because I'm writing it in slope-intercept form. And then 26 minus 12 is 14. So my slope-intercept form is y equals 12x plus 14. So to get from explicit to slope-intercept, you distribute, combine like terms, and then you have that. So I'm going to write that up here. Distribute. And then your second step is to combine like terms. Okay. And then the last form we're going to write it in is standard. Now, this is a review. Okay, so we have slope-intercept form, y equals 12x plus 14. What do I need to move in order to get this in standard form? We want the x on the other side. So I subtract 12x. I have negative 12x plus y equals 14. Now, a lot of you missed this question on your topic 2 test. This leading coefficient cannot be a fraction and it cannot be negative. So in order to make this not negative, we flip the signs for all of them. So 12x minus y equals negative 14 is my final standard form answer. Okay. Make yourself a note. Leading number, leading coefficient cannot be negative and it cannot be a fraction. So all you do is just flip the sign. It went from negative to positive, positive to negative, positive to negative. Okay. So we're reviewing everything from topic 2. If you struggled with slope-intercept form and getting it to standard, you really got to practice because we're going to be using that. Okay, we're going to do part B, but I need some room on my screen, so I'm going to go ahead and erase. Okay, it says, what is the cost of renting the bicycle for 10 days? Use the explicit formula to find the 10th term. So we have AN equals 26 plus. Now, instead of writing N minus 1, I'm going to plug in a number for N. I'm going to show you guys this up here so you can see what we plugged in. So this was my explicit form, remember? Now to solve this, I'm going to write A10 equals 26 plus, plug in that 10 for N, minus 1, times 12. You can type this literally straight into your calculator. Make sure you use parentheses. 26 plus parentheses 10 minus 1, close your parentheses, times 12, and you get A10 equals 134. So that means the cost of renting the bicycle for 10 days is $134. Okay, so all we did to find this is we wrote it in explicit form with our first term and our common difference, and then it wanted to know 10 days. So that number 10 became my N, and I plugged it in, typed it all into my calculator, and got 134. All right. We're going to go ahead and do try it number 3. So this is in your workbook. Try it number 3. There is a $28 checkout fee to rent a bike and the daily rental fee of $2 for each day after that. Write an explicit formula for the rental cost for N days. What is the cost of renting the bike for 8 days? Okay, so we know how much it is to check out a bike. You have to pay that $28 no matter what. And then you pay $2 a day that you have it after that. So when you read this, this should be screaming slope intercept form to you. Okay, so we're going to write y equals, remember, $2 each day. That is going to be our 2x, okay, plus our y-intercept, that initial fee of $28. So we're going to write it in slope intercept form first. So what we need to figure out is what is our first term. So when you're looking for your first term, all you plug in for x is 1 in slope intercept form, okay? First term, you plug in a 1. If you were looking for your second term, you plug in a 2. Okay, so y equals 2 times 1 plus 28. So 2 times 1 is 2 plus 28 is 30. Okay, so we just found our first term, a1 equals 30. Now, our slope is 2. If my slope is 2, that means my common difference is also 2 because remember, slope and common difference are always going to be the same. All right, so this word problem, it was easiest for us to write it in slope intercept form, okay? And then change it to explicit. Now, yes, could you find the answer just using slope intercept form? Yes, but this problem specifically says to write it in explicit form, okay? So now that we have our first term and our common difference, we're able to write it in explicit form. So an equals 30 because that's my first term plus n minus 1. It's always going to be n minus 1 times 2, whatever my common difference was. Okay, so to figure out for 8 days, we would write a of 8 equals 30 plus parentheses 8 minus 1 times 2. Go ahead and do that math to see how much it's going to be to rent the bike for 8 days. You should be getting a of 8, or the 8th term equals 44. So it's going to cost $44 to rent the bike for 8 days. Now I want us to go back really quickly and just have our slope intercept form y equals 2x plus 28. And I want us to practice turning this into standard form. Remember, we subtract 2x from both sides. So that leaves me with negative 2x plus y equals 28. Again, that leading coefficient cannot be negative. So we have to flip the sign for everything. So our standard form of this is 2x minus y equals negative 28. And this is standard. Okay, so we have standard. We have, this one was explicit. Oh no, I lost it. Where did it go? This is explicit right here. And then we also had slope intercept form. So all 3 forms. So you got to get in the habit of being able to write all 3 forms: slope intercept, explicit, and standard. Okay, hopefully you were able to get all of this written down in your workbook. If not, the notes are scanned into Schoology. All right, now we're going to look at example 4. This is going to have us practice, I believe, with the recursive, okay? So The recursive formula for the height above the ground of the nth step of the stairs is shown. Okay, so it's shown to us. It says, we're going to go ahead and write that to the side. Recursive. Our recursive form is AN equals AN minus 1 plus 4, and then it says, comma, A1 equals 7. Okay, so this literally gives us all of our information to write explicit form. Okay, so we're going to write explicit. AN equals A1. Well, this recursive formula just told me what A1 was, and it's 7. So 7 plus parentheses N minus 1 times 4. Okay. This picture also showed us the first step was 7 inches tall. And then after that, it was 4 inches. After that, we were constantly adding 4. Now we're going to write it in slope-intercept form. Okay, so remember to write slope-intercept, you have to distribute your 4 to both things. So y equals 7 plus 4n minus 4. Then we have to combine like terms. Y equals 4x, remember change that into an x, and 7 minus 4 is 3. So y equals 4x plus 3. And then the last one we're going to write it in is standard. We subtract that 4x from both sides. Negative 4x plus y equals 3. But you cannot have that first number be negative. So we are going to write it as 4x minus y equals negative 3. We have standard. We have slope-intercept. We have explicit and recursive. Okay, so I feel like this is starting to sound repetitive of consistently writing all 3 terms, and I feel like I'm, writing it more than necessary, but you have to see how all of these relate together. Okay. All right, here we go. Looking at 4A in your workbook. We're on page, if I've lost you or you, I don't know, haven't been paying attention this entire time, we're on page 121 in your workbook doing try it 4A. So it says write an explicit form for each arithmetic sequence. So this is written in recursive, okay? Out next to this, I want you to write, this is recursive, okay? So we're going to write it in explicit form. Explicit form, AN equals A1. My first term tells me right here is 10 plus parentheses N minus 1. You need to pay attention right here. It was minus 3. Okay, so you want to write that as minus 3. Our common difference is negative 3. Don't forget that whatever sign is in front of that number is the sign that we're going to use. Okay, so that was explicit form. Now we're going to write slope-intercept. Remember, you distribute your 3 to both things. So we have y equals 10 minus 3n plus 3. 2 negatives make a positive. And then we're going to combine like terms. So again, I wrote this on a previous one, but distribute to get from explicit to slope, distribute, combine like terms, and change into x. Okay, so y equals negative 3x. Again, make sure you're right by checking common difference, which we just saw right here, and slope are always the same. And then 10 minus 3 is positive 7. So here is slope-intercept. And then finally, standard form, we have to move over that 3x. So add 3x to both sides. This time, we don't have a negative out front. So 3x plus y equals 7. Don't have to do anything else. That is in standard form. Okay. Moving on. We're going to do a try it 5A. So right below where we just were, try it 5A. This is given to us in explicit. So out next to this one, I want you to go ahead and write that as an explicit form. We're going to put it in recursive. Okay, recursive formula. All we have to do is attach what our common difference is. So we're going to write AN equals AN minus 1 plus 3. And then you could tell me A1 equals 8. That's all you have to do, okay? For recursive, just plop on the end your common difference and then tell me what your first term was. So if I asked you to figure out what the sequence was, you'd have to figure out what was your first term. So 8 plus, remember to figure out a term, you plug in a 1 to figure out your first term. So 8 plus 3 equals 11. And our common difference is 3. So to get to our next term, we would add 3. 11 plus 3 is 14. 14 plus 3 is 17. And then so forth. Okay. I feel like this is pretty easy, guys. All you have to do is pull numbers from what you're already given. All right. See what you can do with B. This is given to you in recursive, and I want you to do the exact same thing we just did. Okay. I want you to write the explicit form. Oh, I'm sorry. I messed up. Sorry, guys. Sorry. This is giving to us in explicit. So sorry. And I want you guys to give me the recursive. Okay. It's given to us in explicit, and then you do recursive. Okay, so recursive, pretty easy. AN equals AN minus 1. All you have to do is attach on your common difference slash slope, which is right here, minus 5. And then you can do a little semicolon. A1, oh, sorry, I messed up on that other one. A1 was definitely not 8. My bad, guys. We found your first term by plugging in 1. So we're going to find our first term here in just a second. Okay. So to find your first term, so this is all you have to do for recursive is drop in that common difference. Okay. Now let's find your first term. 12 minus 5 times 1. 5 times 1 is -5, and 12 minus 5 is 7. So A1 equals 7. So if we were to write the sequence, we would have 7, comma, remember, we're subtracting 5 each time. My slope was -5 and my common difference was -5. So 7, comma 2. 2 minus 5 is -3, and then so forth. Okay? All right, I know this was a lot of information. This was a very heavy lesson. All right, so I suggest if you were lost, go look at the notes on Schoology or go rewatch the video. I did make a mistake on that last try at 5A. First term should not have been 8. It was 11 because we had to find that by plugging in a value. Big thing to remember anytime it asks you for a term, first term, plug in 1. 50th term, plug in a 50, okay? All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to give you or put your assignment up on the board. It is in your workbook. So starting on page 124 in your workbook, you're going to do 17 through 23 odd. So all you're doing right there is going through each sequence and looking to see, is it arithmetic? And if it is, tell me what the common difference is. So you need to see, are you adding or subtracting the same number each time? If so, tell me what D equals. If you're not adding or subtracting the same thing each time, then write not arithmetic. And then for 25 through 30, I want you to write all 4 forms. So recursive, explicit, slope intercept, and standard. Okay. I'll write it out up here what all 4 forms are. All four forms are recursive, explicit, slope intercept, and standard. Okay. Now, 29 and 30 look a little bit different. 29 and 30 are graphs. Okay. In order to get your X and Y values to create a table, you need to pull those ordered pairs off. So for example, 29, your first dot I see is, you want to read your graph left to right. So that first point that I see is 2, 12. So I'd write 2, 12. Okay. This is for number 29. Go through and label all your points. Then it's 3, 8. And then figure out your first term and your common difference once you create a table with X and Y. You're going to have to do that for 28 and 30. Okay. All right. And that is it for your homework. So hopefully once this video ends, or take a picture of the screen right now so you know what I'm expecting of you. It also says it on my webpage. Okay. And you guys are going to have a quiz over this tomorrow. Okay. So make sure you're understanding, rewatching the video, asking a partner if they can, help out if you're having some confusion. You can also email me and I can see if I can help you via email. All right. You guys have a great rest of your day and work hard.